Welcome to, what day is it? November 15th? Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. Tonight we're having 3 public hearings at a regular meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission, which itself should be short, I imagine. So we'll start with our first public hearing, which is to consider a recommendation made by the Design Review Committee on a zoning permit application 1677 made by the Bristol Historical Society, requesting a permit to build an accessory structure to display the Howden Hall Bell located within the downtown Design Review District. Mm-hmm. And I think we have some folks representing the Historical Society. You guys want to come up?
Sure.
Okay. You alone?
I guess so.
All right. Okay. You want to? I think everyone's read the application. Do you want to describe your work, and then we can consider what the Design Review Committee has recommended.
It's going to be.
And your name is?
Zachary Hines.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Sue.
Alright, so it's going to be similar to the bell display that's over at the old high school, but it's going to be a little bit smaller. It's a 3x6, and it's going to have similarities to the Stagecoach building.
Right. Good. And this is a special project of yours?
Yeah, it's for my Eagle Scout project.
Good. That's great.
Cool. Could you describe what that is?
In Boy Scouts, there's like the last rank that you can get is the Eagle Scout. And I think 2 out of every 100 Boy Scouts completes it.
I know I didn't get mine.
Yeah. And so pretty much what it is you do like a community service project, and you have to have around 100 hours of volunteer work into it.
It sounds like this is the 3rd meeting. So.
Yeah.
Getting used to it.
Yes, the hours. That'll add up.
Almost ready to
Very
do
good.
that.
You haven't even had to swing a hammer yet. You've almost got your hours in.
So
you built it yourself?
Yeah, with the help of my dad.
That's great.
I just wanted to point out to everyone on the Planning Commission, at least, the Design Review Committee's minutes and their recommendation regarding this project. And because it's a public hearing, I want to open it up to the public. If there's any input or feedback or questions from the public to us, or us to Zachary, I imagine, or to the Bristol Historical Society. Ted, are you here on behalf of the Historical Society?
I am indeed.
Okay, good. All right. Do you have any questions, or do you want to say anything?
We're very much in favor of it.
Yes, I imagine so. Good. Okay. The Design Review Committee has recommended approval of the permit. They requested a shift of the structure location so that it is in line, the front of the structure would be in line with the coach house. So there's a new diagram of that. If you guys, it did not come in the packet, so this is.
Well, this wasn't in the packet.
It was not in the packet, so that you can see it lined up. Anybody else?
Right, that wasn't in the packet.
Neither one?
Yeah, I had that. Yeah.
No, the one you guys have,
It's farther back.
Just
Did you
further
create
that
it,
way.
Zachary?
Well, yeah.
Yes.
The first one was right on the sidewalk.
Gotcha.
Because the original spot is where the old kiosk is right now.
Exactly. Yeah. I mended it, so
So it's actually slid back parallel.
it slid back and then a little bit to the west. But yeah.
Right, farther up, right. Okay. So any questions from the public on this? How about from the Planning Commission?
I think it's a great idea.
So do I, and I think that the shifted locations would improve it too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
Great job on all the specs and all the
Yeah,
details.
thank
It's
you.
really easy to
Very good drawing.
figure out what it's going to be like.
Thank you.
Very good drawing.
Good. Okay, anyone want to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion to accept permit request 1677 as presented with the amendment to the location of the structure.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? No? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Good job, Zachary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done.
Well done. Can't wait to see it.
Wish they were all like that.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Now you can start working.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
keep
your
building.
guys' is set to happen.
So this is the last step for you guys, I'd assume, right?
Yes.
Cool.
Well, congrats. Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.
But
Welcome.
You'll receive a decision letter from Sue, but yeah, you're How you doing?
Okay, so we have to close that hearing, and so I think I need a motion to close.
Sure, I'll make a motion to close the.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that hearing is closed. We're gonna open our next hearing, which, forgive me for referring to the agenda, so I have it straight. Our next hearing will be to consider the recommendation made by the Design Review Committee for permit 1676, made on behalf of Maxi Green Inc., which is Rite Aid, or the Rite Aid business, requesting a permit to install a storage container located within the downtown design review district. So let me point out the application and materials, which I'm assuming everybody looked at and read. The Design Review Committee, according to their minutes and their letter, their subsequent letter, have voted to recommend to the Planning Commission approval of the permit with a recommendation to move the structure, sorry, wrong one. Recommendation the container be placed on the east side of the building and not protrude past the south face of the building. And that it only be in place from October 1st to March 1st of each year, and that it be a comparable color to the existing building, and that the permit terminate in 5 years. Eric, do you want to, since there isn't anyone here representing that
So I've been talking to
applicant?
Walgreens. This container showed up last year, so I had multiple discussions with them. And, we talked about options, and then they want, they being Rite Aid, would like an addition to the structure, but Parmalat, the owner, is not doing that as of yet. So this is kind of their compromise. They're hoping to be able to bring it in on October 1st and get rid of it on February 1st, is purely for the Christmas stuff. The DRC in their discussion put the 5-year termination on it because they were hoping that Rite Aid could use that as leverage, basically stating that you can only have this fix for 5 years and then it's gone. So you need to be thinking about something else. So that's kind of their rationale for why they approved it temporarily.
Right.
No, it's a
Which
5.
is not unlike the temporary structure.
Yes,
that
they leaned more towards, when you did the 5-year for the Historical Society, it was you have to come renew in 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
They kind of wanted to lean more towards you're done in 5. Like, we're not going to let you do it again in 5 years type of thing. But it would
Did
be,
they make that distinction clear in their letters?
no, because you can't really do that. They would have to come back and reapply, but they're leaning, and obviously it's this group of 6. So their leaning would be to not let it happen again, but you never know with a different group. But that was their leaning. That was their hope, that they could use this to rectify the situation in a different way in the next 5 years. Ultimately. So.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I'll open it up to the public. This is a public hearing, so if anyone has any input or feedback or questions on this project.
Well, I'm interested in this. I'm on that board, and
Yes.
I think it was presented accurately by
Okay.
Eric. And the only other thing I would say is that there's also dumpsters that are just hanging out there that are not shielded, and it's been there for a long time. And there's been quite an effort to pretty up that part of our town. And yeah, I think it's appropriate that maybe Mr. Pond, there's no pressure to put on it, I guess, really, but yeah, it could be handled a little more prettily back there.
So this application is just for this one structure, though?
Yeah, it's for
Yeah.
the storage unit.
The temporary
Yeah.
storage, okay. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any discussion amongst the Planning Commission members, or any questions for Eric?
I'm opposed to it. I think it's unsightly. It's basically a truck container. It certainly does nothing to beautify the center of Bristol. I understand the economic reasons for it, but it's, from my standpoint, a cop job. You know, we're throwing something in there, and we're going to throw a bunch of inventory in there that didn't sell, and it's going to be there for 5 months. And we're going to have this every year for 5 years, 5 months, 25 months. I think I am absolutely opposed to this. Rite Aid is a national corporation, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, which by the way is being bought out by another huge conglomerate. I mean, why should we put up with this storage container that is unsightly in the center of our town? That's what I have to say.
Just one quick. The reason for the container from Rite Aid's point of view is National Rite Aid sends the same amount of merchandise to stores. This store happens to be smaller than their standard store, so they have overflow. So it's not unsold stuff, it's the stuff they have
It's
to
backstock.
restock.
It's backstop.
That's
Yeah,
it's the same idea. But
Tell that to the executives
So
of
it's
Rite
okay.
Aid and CVS that's purchasing Rite Aid.
Walgreens.
And have the, Walgreens, excuse me, and have them figure it out, okay? We as citizens of Bristol, I mean, we're down in that parking lot every day, whether we're going to Bristol Bakery, or going to Rite Aid, or Shaw's, whatever. And to have this unsightly steel container staring at us, I think, why should we have this?
So Eric, was it Rite Aid's interest in having a permanent structure, but they lease from an owner, Mr. Pomerleau, and so it's ultimately his decision whether to make
he
it
has-
a permanent
They've
structure.
amended their lease with him to allow it. He allows it from October till March. He doesn't allow it for the whole year. Rite Aid doesn't want to pay for it for a whole year. So they didn't have the intention to keep it there the entire year.
Right, but the idea is that would Rite Aid prefer a more permanent
Yes.
addition to the building? So it's their intention for a permanent addition as opposed to a temporary.
I talked to the manager of this Rite Aid.
Yes.
That would be her wish.
Yes.
I don't know if that's Rite Aid's
Right.
headquarters wish,
Right,
but
right. So I imagine they're in a bind because this Rite Aid wants to
Right.
do something
I think they would
perhaps
like
more
to
in keeping with that area as opposed to a temporary solution. Ted, do you have a
Is
question?
there the possibility of placing the storage structure on the north side of the building where it wouldn't be visible from the parking lot?
There's no room between
I think
There is. There most certainly is.
the co-housing fence
Yes,
and Rite Aid.
yes.
There's 10 feet, 10 to 12 feet.
I don't think so. I think it's.
I walk the dog down through there a lot.
Does it angle away from the building? That's what I don't. Well, let's look and see if we have. I don't know if we have an aerial.
We do have an
Okay.
I think you push it
Yeah, it
further
is.
back.
It's hard to
Well,
tell.
on the aerial, it shows a lot of trees, going over the fence line, let's see. Is there some way, the other thing is, the mention was made of the dumpsters. Could there be a screen? I mean, the dumpsters at the Shaw's are out behind, so in effect, they're screened by the building.
Something made the point that there's certain criteria that dumpsters are supposed to be screened in the downtown anyway.
Yeah, which
So
these
that
are
might be
not.
something we can work
Well,
on in
That's
my
not part of
office.
this.
I know,
permit,
but I mean, in all honesty, on that argument alone, I'd almost have to guess those dumpsters have been sitting there prior to zoning. You can't enforce zoning after you've passed it on pre-existing.
But they're not structures.
No, but
They're like mobile homes.
we made there's a zoning law, which is the downtown review board. That's a pre-existing condition that's occurring in that location. Zoning was written in that you would take away that person's pre-existing condition or make them non-conforming. They'd be non-conforming,
Right.
but I don't think you could remove them.
I see your point. No, I wasn't saying remove them. I was saying, that's your pen. I was saying, if we're thinking about screening, you could screen the dumpster and the shipping container. You could say you must screen the shipping container, and that would also screen the dumpster. They're just thinking about our various alternatives.
But I think we're dealing with
I want to make sure
two
we keep it.
disparate subjects.
I want to
here.
make sure we just.
I mean, if we
Let's
just
keep
stay
it on
with the
the
Rite
storage.
Aid piece right now, I mean, I understand the analogy to Shaw's, but let's just stay with Rite Aid and see what kind of ideas we can come up with here.
Okay,
for that
not the
piece.
dumpsters. Let's
Not
keep
the
it focused on this
dumpsters,
permit.
Not today, anyway.
Okay, Yeah.
The dumpsters are Shaw's or Rite Aid?
I don't know.
They're Rite Aid.
The Rite Aid, I think.
Right,
So
yes.
this does deal with Rite Aid.
Where
Yes,
are,
but this permit is for
Shaw's
this
is a
temporary
concession.
structure, and that's what I'd like to keep this conversation going about.
Could this aerial shot, is it showing the container there?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Is
It
that
is
what
right
that
there.
is sticking out?
Where?
There's a
No.
picture of it, but not the aerial.
No.
So the aerial
If-
shot is,
no,
what is that
if
that's
you-
bumping out? Is that the
Should
building?
be the
That's a
It is
container in that
container.
picture.
Oh, well, yes, it is. It's
Like,
a little
is
whiter.
that
little,
a container?
Like a gray. That's it,
Oh.
yeah. That is the container.
So maybe I'm gonna point out something, and maybe this is just a practical thing, but having walked through there and the fact that those are parking spaces next
No.
to Shaw's there on the side. Now you have shipping container and dumpster and trying to back out of there with pedestrians.
That's across from the park, from the walkway.
Yeah, so it's on the other side, so the walkway
All
goes,
we need is 10 feet, I
right?
believe.
And then you have those two spaces to the left of it.
That's true, but they've delineated a double line
For delivery.
across that, that says
This right
stop.
here- This right here's a non-parking area.
Non-parking
So
there.
this is actually travel through to get into this area.
Okay.
Because that's where they unload,
Yes. It's their loading and unloading zone.
right?
Yeah,
Anna, were you
yes.
talking about these?
Yeah.
These spots over here?
And so then you're either backing into pedestrians or backing into dumpsters and.
I would say it's not
shipping
ideal. It's not
Yeah.
an ideal arrangement anyway. But we are talking about
The
one
box.
box
Yeah.
in particular. Okay, Ted, do you have a question or a
Yeah,
comment?
if it's possible to put the storage container on the north side of the building, out of the view of the parking lot, would you consider approving it?
So let's talk about, what I don't know is the space around that on the north side and why that wouldn't have been recommended in the first place, and I suspect it's because of the access to the back door.
Yes.
Yeah,
more
so they come
convenient.
out the
I
back
think
door.
you're probably right
Yes.
about that.
Right.
Yeah.
And possibly for, I don't
Yeah.
know, I am just guessing, safety or lighting, I don't know. I really have no idea how Rite Aid, how often they're using it and coming and going from that back door. And not having representation makes it a little harder to ask that question.
I've seen them there quite often.
That's when they're moving sort of out of that back door and into the container.
Right, because in one of those pictures you can see the doors open.
Yeah, right.
Before approving it, I'd want to ask for an attractive screen in front of it.
Well, we have only 5 of us, and if one is opposed, we don't have 5 in alignment anyway.
So since we have one opposed, maybe we should move on.
So I'm not ready to conclude our conversation yet, but I want to make sure that we have discussed it thoroughly. And I don't know if screening would make a difference. And I'm not trying to negotiate, but I'm looking for trying to move along. Okay.
What I would recommend is that Rite Aid comes back to us with an alternative plan. And that alternative plan could be screening of where they have this container right now, or it could be, as you suggested, to be on the north side. So I think we throw it back into Rite Aid's court. We don't like the proposal right now. Do you have an alternative? And see what they have to say.
I'm not sure I'd word it as we, so I would definitely, I would let the applicant know that we did not have 5 in alignment in order to proceed with
I agree
approval
with
of the
that.
permit.
I
Okay,
agree with that.
all right. I'm inclined to move forward, but I am not opposed to alternatives which may move the container or screen the container, because I understand input.
Yeah, one of my concerns, I don't know what their terms are with Carmelo, how often they renegotiate that. It would pain me if, due to the fact of the lack of the size of their store, this is a short-term solution that I feel the design review committee worked hard. You guys worked for a while on this, by the meeting minutes. It wasn't just a snap decision you all made.
That's true.
I like to honor what you all do for work. That's one of the first things we always look at. With that being said, it's a short-term solution to a potential issue they have. If this caused them not to be able to continue to do business in our town, believe it or not, that could be, if they cannot bring in the merchandise that they're handed to, That could be a huge blow to this community. And I'd hate to see a boarded up building that size. Because the next thing to move in there could be everyone's favorite, a dollar store, or, I'm not kidding, but
No.
this is reality. That we've got an established business that we all utilize.
Right.
And is it pretty? No, but for God's sakes, half the stuff back there isn't beautiful right now. And they're not asking to build an ugly structure, they're asking for a stopgap measure. I like the idea of putting a 5-year limit on it and have them reapply in 5 years. And at that point, yeah, then we stomp our feet and say, no, it's not an option. At that point, we reject it.
And I also think we're not opposed to the existence of the structure, so that, we're not saying no. I don't think even Bill's implication is no extra storage based on the fact that they don't have enough square footage to be able to store the stuff they need to sell.
No, it's not a question of whether they need storage, okay? It's a question of what they are doing to the environment by having a storage facility like that. And Chris, although I agree with you most of the time, I think 5 years is not a short-term solution. If you told me a year, I would say okay, but 5 years to me is not a short-term solution. And who knows what would happen 5 years from now? Do we have another situation where, well, we're still negotiating?
What if we shorten it to 3? That'd be amicable?
I have to think about it. You're so sharp at this,
Eric, is it there already? Yes.
Come on.
Okay. Okay.
And the other question is, what,
if you say no, then that's good.
well, what is it as far as zoning goes? What do we consider it?
An accessory structure.
As a 1 year?
It's an accessory building.
structure.
Like if you put a shed on your
garage.
Even if it's, temporary, it's a.
Yeah, my office does not look at things as temporary because people don't move them.
Yes,
So even though it's technically going to leave, it has to abide by the setback regulations of
of a
a
structure.
permanent structure.
Okay.
We apply the same things to the tarp
Tim,
tents.
did you have another comment?
I was just gonna add that we chose 5 years because we've already made a bit of a precedent with the
Right.
5 year, and we thought that would be the fair
I
amount of
understand
time.
that.
It's, big corporation, and it could take time, I don't know,
Yeah.
but that was some of our thoughts. I think it's mostly for precedent though, to keep it the same, since we did it before.
I like that. Thank you.
So our options could be, if we want to keep going here this evening, and I'd like to try to find resolution if we could, could the planning commission approve with a stipulation that screening be established? Or would that kick it back to the design review because of the nature of screening? We've not done this. We've not done this before, but I want to. I mean, and to be mindful, the thing is there. We have it in front of us. We have 5 of us here. We're deep in conversation. Design review is already met. I understand reservations. I'd like to try to find a compromise.
Well, even design and review, if you read the notes carefully, there was a disagreement. Now they did unanimously agree, but there was
Right.
a vociferous
Yes.
disagreement
I
from
agree.
what I read. Okay.
Right. So the recommendation would that it be flush with the building and that it be a similar color, which both of those exist currently anyway, right now. So that's a
Close
good
enough.
thing. So my question is, and this is procedural, Eric and others, so help me out here. I don't think we've exactly done this before where we've made a stipulation in order to proceed. Like if we were to require screening, because of the nature of it, it would go back to the design review.
I agree.
It would require Rite Aid to show an example of the screening that they would.
The historical society, you didn't kick it back when you added the 5-year term. That was something the PC
No, but
did.
I'm suggesting that if we can find compromise here that requires a screen, it would require it to go back to the. I think it would have to. Rite Aid would have to respond and show because it's in the design review area, and the design review committee would have to.
Well, the
look at it.
interesting part there is the screening in the DRC is only supposed to be 4 feet high.
Anyway.
5 feet if it covers vehicles. So you'll have an issue with the height of it anyway. Unless you plant trees.
No, we're not doing that. It's
But it's
parking
on-
lot, so
right.
it has to be, have common
The
sense.
screening would be, screening is a question.
Right, so because of the nature of the thing itself, could we,
You can make the recommendation that,
I mean, the
have
screening
Rite
would
Aid
have
come
to
back
be-
to you and I'll put them
The screening would
back
have
to
to
you.
also be, I mean, I imagine temporary. I don't know if it would be, sort of attached to the building and go to the, sort of out as far as the container itself and be tall enough to cover the container, but with a sort of a fence-like screen. Could it be more in keeping with the,
Well, I mean,
with the efforts
I think
in that
procedurally
area?
You guys can deny it, and Rite Aid can start over, with the caveat that that's why you denied it. We didn't like this option, but maybe
I'd
other
like to
options.
be more-
Can I
I'd
come
like to
back
be
and
more-
answer your
yes,
question?
Yeah,
You asked a
yeah,
question.
yeah.
For that reason, I think it might be better and actually more positive to say, we see your need to have
Right.
this. We see your bind.
Right, that's where I'm
Would
at.
you come back to us with suggestions about either screening or locating in one of the other areas people have pointed to see if there's some way in which you can get what you want, not being turned
Yes,
down,
yes.
but do it in a way that speaks to some concerns. I think
Is it-
that would be,
That's a nice compromise.
that's pretty easy really, and it's not,
Is it technically extending to a date certain? It is, but what I want to make sure is that by doing that, they still have to go back to the design review committee, so it postpones.
I'd say we should. Like, you can postpone to a date certain your public hearing on it,
Yes.
because the DRC does not have public hearings.
Right.
So you can postpone to December 20th, let's say, your public hearing on this.
Yeah.
We'll roll them back through the DRC, try to come up with a new
Could
plan.
we do that? Okay. All right. I think I need,
I have
before I close, I want to make sure.
just one more comment.
Right.
I agree with what Chris and John have put forward. I think it's a good compromise, but I want 3 years. I don't want 5.
All right, so that will be part of the, at least the minutes and part of the conversation.
So when I speak to them, you want it less visible, really, is whether it's pushing it to the north side, somehow screening it with something, and you want a less time frame.
Correct.
I'm not sure we're all in alignment on the
Right,
last time frame.
so-
I'm good either way on the time. I appreciate Slim's input because I forgot that we put to 5 years
Right.
on that, and keeping it, yeah, screening.
It's a different location, that's the only thing. I mean, it is there as opposed to behind a building and,
I mean, well,
understand
technically
that.
it's behind the building.
Yes, I know,
I
but in the
mean,
middle of a parking lot.
Technically it's behind the building.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to if they could push it back slightly, screen that face a little bit, so that when you pull into any of those parking spaces, you're not staring at the back end of a container.
So visual perspective is pretty important. You keep saying screening.
Yes.
They could put up a chain link fence with little
No.
plastic slats.
So a fence that
Right.
would be, so a fencing, so what
Stockade.
I'm imagining, and I'm not a designer, but I'm imagining a tall enough, fence-like structure that serves as a screen, that is tall enough to meet the top of the container, that is in keeping with the design elements that have been established. Doesn't have to be matching, but the design elements that at least were intended for that area along, what would you call that? Is that Prince Lane?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm glad you're here, Sam.
Okay.
It screens the dumpster, but the Bristol Bakery's fence or screen is definitely higher than 4 feet. Way higher than 4 feet.
So I think there's leeway for you guys
To be able to, yeah.
Well,
So
you
I'm
could
not
have-
talking about the
we-
dumpster, I'm talking about the storage container.
Yeah, I understand.
okay,
I'm
okay.
saying there is a fence in town that is
Oh, there's
new
two of
and higher
them. We
than 4
approved one
feet.
2 years ago on another property
Right.
that was taller than the 4 feet.
Yeah,
If the purpose of the fence is to screen the container, you
Yes.
want it to be as tall as or slightly taller than the
No,
container.
and it really
You know,
is. I
I
mean,
mean-
honestly, even like a 4 or 5 foot screen there would break up the just boxiness of it, for lack of a better term. It would, I think it would dissolve that. Even, I mean, honestly, just a plain white picket fence or just to break up the meh that's created by it.
I agree with that. And also just pointing to the analogy we've been making to the Historical Society, that is not right on the street side. that's totally, you know,
Back
out of
behind.
public.
I mean, it could be a dozen potted spruces that are 5 feet high. What we're looking at is not to see this metal behemoth, but rather our eyes deflected to something that is growing and doesn't remind us of Port Newark.
And this,
Okay.
and this goes back to they can make suggestions.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I'd rather be their choice.
They've got some ideas. A number of things they could do would not cost very much money
Yes, okay. Okay, so
compared to building addition.
I'm moving toward I forget what we call it, a postponement to a date certain, but with a recommendation. How do we do this? Excuse me while I ask for counsel.
A recommendation
Is it a formal recommendation for Rite Aid to consider amending the application
Yeah.
and to consider these elements, recognizing that it would require a revisit to the design review committee? Okay. Do I have to do that in a motion?
No.
I don't think so.
You can, Jerry, you can close.
Okay, but we're in agreement on this direction?
Yes.
Okay. Seeing that we don't have 5, I think we need to, I'd rather not deny, I'd rather keep it.
No, I
moving.
think this is a good direction.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
against it.
All right, if there's nothing else, we're gonna close the hearing, okay? All right, motion to close the
Second.
hearing. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, okay, good. Let me get a glass of water. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm digging out the outlines.
Okay. All right, hold on, let me get organized here.
Which I'm happy to share if anyone would like them.
Thank you. All right.
You want to have to wait?
Absolutely.
Okay, ready? Okay, all right, we're gonna open our 3rd public hearing for the evening. This may be a record. Public hearing to consider, the way Eric has written it, the appeal of zoning permit 14-01 PRD B, Hogback Heaven Farm, the Bristol Co-housing Project, requesting amendments to the original permit 14-01 PRD. I have asked Eric to help us, and I have we have the applicants in the audience. Eric, do you want to just give us an overview of the nature of the wording, the appeal on the permit?
Sure.
Amendment.
So, that's a term they've been using for a while, and Sue and I talked about it. It really doesn't make sense. Appeal. It's really just I'm not allowed to make the authorization to make these changes, albeit as small as they are. You guys changed that going forward, but currently I can't do it, so I have to push it back up to you. So I deny it, and they appeal the denial. It goes to you. So Peg and I had talked, and Katie Raycroft and I had talked, and it came up when they originally, the building at 12, they were going to remove portions of it, and it turns out when they dug back in, I'm sure Peg will tell you more, but it was rotten. So what they ended up doing was cutting the front half off, storing it, and we'll be rebuilding that. So I asked them to come back just to check in with us because I want to make sure that the new building is similar to the old building, in which they have a diagram in your package. You can see it's actually a little bit smaller, slightly smaller. So they came back with that, and at the same time they made a few. So that building has come down. They've started the foundation of it, but so that's why they came back for that. And then Katie had mentioned a few other changes in the future that they had thought they might need, so I had them put it in here as well. Similar to the last one you had, they had to move a building for a tree and move some paths and stuff, but they can talk to that as well. But so that's why I brought them back, just because as a project this big, you get some little things that change along the way, but we want to make sure that the permit they have allows for what the end product is, so we make these little amendments along the way. So it's not that unusual to do that.
And we have, I think, we did ask for some time because we were finishing up with the zoning regulations, or perhaps this might have come to us and these others might have come to us sooner.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so I appreciate that. Okay, Peg and Jim, do you want to share anything or explain, help us understand the
Sure.
nature of the amendments?
Yeah,
Okay.
just stand up, I don't even.
Yeah, or somebody you can come sit with us if you want.
We're friends.
And you can point to, that would be helpful, I think,
Okay,
for
that sounds
folks.
good. So some of these changes are ones, I think we should deal with the smaller ones first. So there are three buildings that, or three changes that we made because we wanted to save certain trees. So one of them is this building I, which I call the southeast cottage. And so this cottage is going to move a little bit to the south to save one maple tree that's at the corner of it.
Do you have a sense of how far south, or maybe it's in here?
I think it's about a foot.
Okay.
And then there's a path, and this one I'm not exactly sure where this is. There's a path on the north side of the green that we're going to move. It's near the north cottage. Am I even looking at this the right way? I think so.
Here's North Street. Here's the
Here's
big
North
house.
Street. Yeah, so this must be the north cottage. So I think we're going to be moving, I think it's this path to save a tree. And I guess Katie must have told you where that's going. So that was the one part that.
Did she describe it in the,
I think she did.
And it just had shifted.
Yeah.
Just shifted a little bit. to
east
say-
west path
Yeah.
on north side of Green.
Right.
Yeah.
So this one is going to be shifted a little bit again for that, another tree. And then the parking area here between 12 and 8 North Street.
Right
Here,
there.
here.
Yeah.
She said she made the turnaround a little smaller. She said it was overly generous anyway. And that's again to save another tree.
And that was part of the last amendments that we did in the spring, was, you know, we talked about that.
They changed the configuration of the parking spaces.
Right.
This is now reducing one of those resulting spaces.
Got it.
Not the space, the turnaround, the
Yes.
backup,
So what's
slightly.
the turnaround? That is the area over there on the right, I guess?
This?
Yeah,
Yeah, it must be this part here.
yeah, okay.
It's a little hard to read this upside down, but.
Do you want to
No,
shift
no,
it? Shift it so
you're the
you
one
can
who
see it.
can
You know
see
it
it.
better than we do.
And then there are three other small things. One is to reduce the number of parking lights, parking lot lights from 5 to 4. There'll be 2, I guess, over here, and then 2 others down in here, and then 1 on the barn. So the parking light ones are supposed to, I think the reason we shifted that was because we realized we could have a light on the barn that would illuminate enough of it. And also, related to that is to use solar lights instead of connecting it to the grid. And the last thing is the barn, the storage barn here, but just to sort of keep the grade at the foundation because of the grade that this south cottage has to be, is to build a retaining wall that's about 1 foot or 1.5 feet, just so that we can keep the foundation, the grade at the foundation. So basically there'd be a retaining wall here for, I suppose, a higher elevation by the south barn.
Because that's the barn that's staying there.
Right, right, sorry, the higher elevation would be around this south cottage.
I see.
Is how I understand she, these are the weeds that she is more familiar with.
Yeah.
So that's one whole set, and then the other piece involves 12 North Street.
Right,
So our concept with 12 North Street was to retain essentially the facade.
right.
So not necessarily the front half of the building. I think the word front was apparently ambiguous. But what we wanted to do is have the building look the same essentially from North Street.
Yeah.
So that people wouldn't, you know,
That it would remain the same,
inappropriate
yes.
to do anything else.
Yeah.
So when we were originally going to just knock down the rest of the building and sort of prop up the wall
Yes.
so that we could build around it. But when they came to that point, they showed it to me and it was really rotten underneath. There was no way to do that. So instead, as many people in town may have observed,
I watched the
they took it up and they moved it, and it's stored on site now. And it's going to be restored exactly as it is once there's another part of the building, the back part of the building is there to attach it. So I just wanted to explain you know, we're taking a lot of steps to make the building appear the same way that it would if we had kept it. And, you know, the part, like, so we're keeping the front facade, but as you probably remember, there was a porch in front of the front facade. Again, a lot of the parts of this building were structurally unsound.
Once you got in there.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's probably been there since we've owned it, and even since we explored it, you know, would have told you that there was a lot of rot in the building, a lot of mold. It was, and the way it was built, you know, there were things over other things that shouldn't have been resting on the, you know, there were structural parts that were on insufficient
Footing.
foundations, footing. So what we're going to do is keep the facade, look exactly the same. We're going to rebuild the porch on the street side. It'll have the same overall dimensions as the old porch and the approximate details of the porch columns and trim, including the same low slope roof. The only difference is that there was a glass enclosed porch that will now be screened instead. And then the front facade again will be exactly the same size and shape as the old one in the same location. The original front eave trim profiles will be matched, and this trim will carry around the west part of the new building. So the west part of the new building is this part, is how I understand. This is information I got from the architect. So again, the trim will appear the same from the street. The new front section of the building we tore down was added to over time. So if you looked at the building carefully, you could see that, you know, the front section might have been yay big, but actually it was originally a little bit narrower. Mm-hmm. So we're going to rebuild, we're going to match the depth of the original front section, so not the added on front section, but the original front section. And then we're going to step back the building from there. And I think you can see that
You
on
wanna
the
use
building
that?
that I showed. Yeah. So, you know, so this will be the same dimensions as the original building, and then it'll be stepped back from there. And it's within, you know, more or less within the original footprint. It's certainly smaller than the original footprint. One thing that we've done is where there was an old porch on this side, we've actually, instead of the porch, which just didn't work in terms of entrance, and we ended up putting a little bay window kind of situation. So that'll be exactly where the porch was, where that little porch was.
And so this area over here, this is what was there, but the new,
Right.
your new design would be here.
Right.
If I'm reading this correctly.
Yeah, a number of reasons for that. I mean, one of the real, it just gives you more like light in this part of the building, and just seemed to make more sense to have it that type of shape. So that's it. And as you can see, the original building was 2,600 plus square feet, and this is about 2,400 square feet. So it's a little smaller than the original footprint.
Peg, it would be helpful if we had a copy of that. That would be great, that description. It's really helpful.
I think you have it.
We have.
Oh, do we have that exactly? Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Sorry.
To-do list.
Okay, sorry. I see. Okay, got it.
It's right before the
Yes, I
time.
got it. Sorry. I didn't realize that's what you were looking at. Okay, good. All right, so, Eric, do you have any other things to suggest to us or to say in terms of process?
No, I mean, they came with all the changes much like they did before, so it totally makes sense that a project of this scope is going to have some small tweaks along the way.
Yeah, I imagine that, I think, just sort of observing as a member of the public, I remember seeing the front sort of encased, and then a day or two later, the whole thing was gone. And it might have been shocking to people, I imagine, particularly our zoning administrator. So I encourage you, I mean, I know that you're like way into the details of the project now, but if something like that comes up, it's helpful for Eric to know sooner rather than later. If you have a, you know, I mean, I don't think that working with the town or with Eric has been onerous, but this is a really detailed and visible, not that any other project of this detail is, whether it's in the middle of town or not, it doesn't matter. It's just a really detailed project that we've been really involved with. And so, you know, we really appreciate you coming and obviously amending the permit as you are coming along with very small changes, which some of these are, but, you know, having the whole house go is I would say, pretty pretty major.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that we needed to amend the permit because of this change. What we did do at that time was we put something in front porch forum because we realized people would notice. It wasn't like hidden someplace. in the back lot.
Right, no, I know.
So we, and that's what we tried to do when there are things that are, that we're doing, we like to let the town know, and front porch
Yes.
forum is a great way to do it, but I didn't realize that we needed to have the zoning change, so I'm sorry that I overlooked that.
Okay, so there are members of the public here, and this is a public hearing, so people can ask questions of us, and then we can convey them to Peg or try to answer them with Eric, and we can ask questions as well. Any questions or comments?
The only, and I haven't unfortunately had time since it was asked of me to go over and actually look at it. Somebody actually came to me and wondered, there's a concrete footing along the North Street side that just feels that it's closer than the previous footings. There's a small, they said that it resembles a retaining wall. I assume it's going to be a foundation footing for the porch. This is just, the public came to me and said, what do you know about this? I'm like,
Is it for this building?
for the 12 North. It's
Yeah.
right where the old porch area is. They just feel that it feels much closer than what was previously there. And I'm like, I honestly don't know. I don't have a tape measure. I don't have drawings. I don't have any of that. So
It's exactly in the footprint, it's no closer.
And Eric,
It may appear
have you had a
closer
site
because there's
visit?
nothing there.
No, I'm planning on with Katie for later this week, early next week.
Okay.
Check.
I could imagine with the chain link fence in front, that it all just feels tighter than it was than when you walked by and it was open.
Right, and also it hasn't been there for a while. You know
No.
what I mean? So
Yeah,
it's
so it's
hard,
like-
and the building was very close to
It
the
was right
sidewalk.
on
Yeah.
the sidewalk almost.
So it, again, they put it back where
The
it was.
porch, yeah, the
Yeah.
enclosed porch.
I walked the property, spent about an hour, and I don't know who the contractor is, but the subs are superb. They are very detailed, what they're doing.
I agree.
Just laying out a walk and laying out drain areas.
I agree.
They were straight as an arrow.
Yeah, I mean, the contractor is Aaron Stewart Construction, and they're amazing. I can't recommend
Yeah,
them.
so I was very impressed with this.
So Eric and Peg, you guys described this changes to retain particular trees. I think people probably appreciate that. I personally do, and I can't speak on behalf of others, but I think that's an important consideration right in the village. And so I just wanted to say that. And Eric, do you agree that that the shifts that are outlined are, Peg described one is about a foot different than
Yeah, the
the
cottage
other.
eye is fine, it's still within setback
Yeah.
regulations.
How about the other ones? It's hard to know what the shift in the path is. I have to sort of
Yeah, the path
trust you
doesn't,
guys that.
the path doesn't fall into setback requirements. The turnaround doesn't, it's not a parking space and it's not going away, so it doesn't have specific dimensions for a turnaround.
Yeah.
So that one's okay. The lights is all under your purview.
Yeah.
I gave you copies of the new lights. They look very,
Yeah.
if anyone wants to
They
see
look
the old
similar
lights
to
look
what
pretty similar
we
to the old
proposed
ones.
the last time.
They just have the solar on the top.
They have the solar collector on.
And they
top.
reduced it by one. So,
And these are still that level that we had talked about.
yeah,
in the
they're still the
original
shorter
plan.
ones, right?
Yeah. that's
in the
what
parking lot.
I'm saying, Yeah.
So yeah, there was no issues on the zoning side with any of these changes. It
Okay.
was mostly site plan type
Thank
stuff.
you. Anyone else have any questions or comments on this?
I'm all for saving trees. So I second that one.
No, I
I'm
think it
just
looks fine.
curious, so-
I'm glad you came in to go over the details with us. That was great. But I think it all makes sense to me.
I'm not suggesting that this necessarily be a requirement, but will a map be updated? Is that part of what happens when we sort of obviously, or not necessarily obviously, move forward, so that we have
Your
a,
decision letter will reference the map that was submitted to us tonight.
okay,
That is-
which is that,
That's
but
the
that
most
doesn't
current.
reflect the changes, does it? Or
That's
does?
the one Katie gave me, so it should, yeah.
Oh, okay, this does.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll reference this map. Okay, all right,
And that'll be the
All right.
most current version.
all right.
We've got a whole pile.
Yes, okay, well, it's important. I mean, we've kept good track of
Right.
each of these amendments
Timeline, so yeah.
and the maps. It's really important to be able to indicate that.
I think the good news is that pretty soon we'll be done with the building on North Street, and most of the, I believe most of these buildings will be up by the end of December. So at least that part
Yeah.
will be done, and then more stuff will be on the interior, so they won't have an impact in terms of the zoning.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Anybody else? Anybody? Okay. All right. All right.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Shall we proceed? Okay. I need a motion. I could make the motion to approve as presented the amendments to. Okay. So moved. Right. Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion?
Thanks for coming.
No? Okay. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, motion to close the public hearing. So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in
Third.
favor? Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh. Hey, Peg? I think there's a coat here. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for our 3 hearings. I'll open the regular meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. We have a minimal agenda, frankly. We can start with approval of the minutes from November 1st, which was our last meeting. Let me just get organized here. Oh, okay.
Make a motion to accept them as presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the minutes?
I would like to compliment Eric. This was a very complicated meeting, and I think the minutes are very accurate and full. So it helped.
Thank you, Eric. You're good.
Thank you, Sue, for your comments on that.
I have an occasion going back years to look for our minutes, and it helps when there are detailed minutes. Actual minutes. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the November 1st minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have, well, really, I just wanted to let you guys know that the select board will have its first of 2 warned public hearings on the proposed zoning regulations and on the amendment to the town plan. That'll be on Monday. I will attend and be available to answer questions if called upon, and I'm hoping that others, I'll send out a reminder to everyone to attend and answer questions.
Who just come to the beginning of that meeting?
You know what, I'll find out from, yes, it is first, right? Eric, do you think it is first? They usually do the public hearings first. I'm imagining it'll be at 7.
Is it in this room? Yeah, okay.
Is it the 21st?
It'll be Monday the 21st.
Okay. 7, okay.
Yeah, it's a select board meeting.
Yeah.
It's their public hearing.
Yep.
They've warned their second hearing for Monday, December 19th. So I would hope that any of us would attend then too and help to answer questions as necessary. We technically have one meeting in December on the 20th if we have business, which I think we do so far. The Marcells?
Marcel's PRD, possibly Robert Fuller's PRD on North Street, and now
Yes.
you're
Okay.
continuing.
Coming back.
Right.
If, okay.
And possibly.
Mhm. Okay, I may be away for that meeting, so John, will you be here on the 20th?
Yes.
Okay, I may need you to
We're
check.
not gonna have like a December 1 or 2 meeting?
No,
or
we are
something?
not.
Okay, we'll just
I
ask
tried,
her.
but she won't let me.
Just
She
ask
kept pushing.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Sue.
her. Not pushing for it? Good.
And I'm also going to suggest that if we don't have business in January, that we take January off. Do you think are we able to do that?
I used to take July.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. All right. thank you. Anybody else have anything related either to administrative matters or public comments? We have no comments, no public.
Well, look who's left us.
I know.
Kind of a comment.
If not, we can adjourn.
Wow.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.